Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy here, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with
Dave.
And today I kind of have my own Player 911 talking about the Ritualist feat.
Okay, so before we get into the rituals, why don't we go through our little ritual of you going down to the description and sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, where you'll get weekly gaming tips and learn how to game with Nerdarchy. Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, no worries. So in D&D 5th edition, there is the Ritualist feat, and there's really no real prerequisites. You get access to essentially rituals, and you get a couple that you get to add to your book straight away, and any other rituals that you find later on you can add to your book with a gold cost. But when you select it, you have to pick a class. So in your game, I'm playing a cleric. So clerics have access to rituals, so anything on the cleric list they can ritual cast if they have it already as a prepared spell. And then they can cast it as a ritual without it taking up a slot. If any wizard, because he chose wizard as his thing for the feat, any wizard spell that I have as a ritual that I've put in my book, I can ritual cast out of the book. Now, looking through the player's handbook and the small elemental companion, there's only a total of 31 spells. I made a little dandy spreadsheet of all my information. So there's 31 ritual spells. A total of 17 are wizards, 11 are druid, 12 are cleric, and there's a lot of
11?
11, yeah. 11 total druid, 12 total cleric, with some overlap. So really, with the overlap between druid and cleric and druid and wizard, there's only 5 spells out of all of those that are druid only. So we don't know what the future holds with what splat books and stuff are going to come out there, with what rituals and stuff are out there. The Ritualist feat doesn't say you can take it multiple times and be able to select another class. But I wonder, since I already have all the cleric and I have the access to the wizard from the spell, or from the feat, what is your opinion on allowing the feat to just, if you already have one class, to allow for the other two?
So, as it stands currently, wizard, cleric, and druid are all ritual casters.
Yes.
They're the only 3.
Right.
And warlock, if you go past the tome.
Correct.
Back of the tome, or
Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm trying to remember if it's what it's called. Is it boon? Are they boons? Are they pack boons?
Yeah, pack boons.
So the tome boon. So there's currently, and then you can take the fee. So there's 5 ways in the game. So when a caster does it, it's not really that big a deal. Warlock doesn't need to do it because, if you have that particular boon, it's actually like one of the best ones in the game because it just gives you all of them. Mm-hmm. It becomes a warlock spell, and you don't have to, you don't have to select specific. So that's really strong. For wizard or cleric, you're getting basically half of all of them. Right. You're getting the bulk of them, mm-hmm, as it stands. So now, I guess like here's the issue that I see, right? If you're a fighter and you take ritual caster, mm-hmm, you're now a better ritual caster than a wizard.
So what my I guess my question really is to not say, all right, if can you just turn the Ritualist feat into that boon, but like being able to say select 2.
Okay.
Because in this situation as a cleric, I'm out of that 31, I'm already getting 12 of them naturally.
Right.
When I added on wizard, that added essentially 12 more, because of the overlap.
And also the divine ones aren't as good as the arcane ones.
Mm-hmm. So, realistically, the 5 things that I'm looking at trying to get, mm-hmm, speak with animals, animal messenger, beast sense, locate plants and animals, and then way down here at 5th is commune with nature.
Right. So like looking at it like when I said arcane, actually I should just say wizard,
right,
or warlock. And the reason why I say that is because a divine caster actually has to have that spell prepared to ritually cast it, where and they're still limited to the number they can prepare per day.
The wizard, you don't. You
just have a book.
You just have the book. You pull it out.
Same with warlock. A ritual book, and actually ritual caster too. If you take the feat ritual caster, you get a book, right?
Yes.
You're actually a better ritual caster than the cleric.
Yes.
Or the druid, if you go down those paths, because you're going to be putting them in your book. Now, the offset that is, those classes don't have to pay for those spells. They don't have to find them. They just, they just pray and they have them. Where if you're putting them in the book, you gotta go out like Pokemon and capture them all.
That's true.
To get them in there.
For the cleric spells that are on my ritual list, I can't put them in my book. I have to still have that slot prepared and be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to ritual cast it. So that does limit my options. But looking at it, it's like, okay, well, I want to be able to have the more options, and there really is no way for me to add my cleric stuff to the list. But if you would allow, okay, well, if I get the feat and I'm able to choose wizard and druid, I could then add those other 5. And now, mind you, I still would have to find access to the rituals, which finding divine rituals, written down, is probably more challenging than wizardly. And then I'd have to pay the gold cost to actually get them entered into the book. So there already is a double layer of issue beyond the just allowance.
Right, you have to find. Yeah, you literally have to find scrolls with these spells that have been scrawled on them, and then transfer them into your book.
Right.
It poses an interesting question of how to deal with it. I kind of feel like there should be another maybe evolution to that. But we haven't seen it yet in this edition. Doesn't mean it won't appear like the feat tree.
Right.
And the question is, are we trying to stay away from that with 5th edition, or is it just not been broached yet?
Right.
So perhaps if there was an improved ritual caster where maybe it just opens it up to you can ritual cast any spell that you put in your book. That might be a way to go. And for someone like your character who's already a ritual caster through one of the classes, it may or may not be as beneficial depending on your perception of things, how much you consider it a benefit to be able to add these spells to your book and not have to have them memorized.
Right. That would absolutely be more useful to Relion. As I said, there's 12 cleric spells that are in here, and they're very divine-y. Detect poisons and disease is not something he's going to typically be preparing. Purify food and drink, again, it's not something that's going to be standard. Augury, is a maybe. Silence, probably not. That's something that's going to be very specific. Meld into stone, really, when is that going to get called into task? The real ones that are worthwhile for him don't come until 4th and 5th level, and that's divination and commune, and then then you get all the way up to 6, which is the highest level spell, and that's forbiddance. And that's something that it's like, oh well, if you're in a situation that you really want to stop planar travel, you can make that happen.
So, and the flip side is, are you just being greedy? Like before 4th edition, we didn't have ritual casting. Right. We couldn't cast spells at will, and now it's like we're getting a little spoiled. We got cantrips at will. You have ritual castings where there's spells that aren't necessarily combat spells, but they can be useful. outside of combat and for exploration or even role-playing situations. So it's a fun addition to the game. And then, but like as players, you always want to push a little bit further.
Well, I mean, there is that, and that's why we always have DMs. We always have somebody who gets to make those rule calls. At its core, I'm looking at it, it's like, well, it's only 5 spells. Now, if something happens, later on, and like, oh, we're going to release an entire supplement of ritual spells, and here's 30 new spells to add into the book. 10 for cleric, wizard, druid. Well, then that completely changes the whole.
Yeah, I also look at it too, like DMs are like the Supreme Court, right? Once you set precedent, it's there. So like. So like for this character, you're just like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's only another 5 spells. But then the next campaign, someone plays a fighter, and they're like, I want to take ritual caster, and now I want all the spells too, right? Which is completely different than what you previously said yes to, or at least the circumstances are different.
Right.
But at the same time, that player could be like, well, you let Ted do it.
Right.
Why do you like Ted more than me?
Because I'm awesome.
Because I'm sleeping with his sister. I don't know. No. So like we have to think of. I'm married to Ted's sister, by the way, and I have a couple kids, so it's confirmed I've slept with her at least twice.
Been married for a while. So.
Yeah. So the question is, whenever you have this kind of thing, is like, well, how is it going to affect the overarching game? Right. How can this be abused? What are the other situations this is going to come up with? I kind of like the idea of an improved ritual caster where it basically gives you that warlock boon. Okay. And literally, a human can do it at 4th level. Anyone else has to wait till 6th if you're a fighter. Yeah. And if you're not a fighter, it takes 8th level. Right. So at that point, it's not a big deal. And again, still from Ritual Caster, you still got to Pokemon that bitch and find them all and put them in a book.
So now here comes, off of that suggestion, if you are playing a Divine Caster, would you then still say you need to find the scroll, or can you take the prayers that you have access to and put them in your book?
I think I would allow a Divine Caster to put them in their book for the cost. Okay. Of putting a book. So
you wouldn't find it, but you still need to have the rare inks, and you need to come up with your own formula. That makes sense.
Well, because there's a cost for transferring the spell into a book, no matter how you get it.
Right, and that is using the rare inks, coming up with your own formula. So.
And you'd have to basically spend the day. Preparing that spell, or you'd have to prepare that spell normally, and then basically part of scribing it into your scroll into the ritual book would be like essentially casting it in addition to the costs or whatever. Right. So, which I mean, obviously that can all happen downtime. It's not really a big deal. It's just going to be a money issue depending on how many spells you want to put in and whatnot. So that's probably how I think I'm going to handle it.
That is completely agreeable. We can, I definitely have no problem with that, especially because having that, even though it would take up a feat slot, Relian doesn't really care about stat bumps. That's not really his forte. He's more about the knowledge, but being able to then get access to the few druid spells, but be able to take all of the other cleric stuff and be able to put that. My goal is to do that whole Pokemon crap and get them all and be able to have that book. I mean, I might even sit back and say, okay, well, at some point in time, make a second copy just for the Elven Library, because imagine having all ritual spells that are technically known there.
Or in case your book accidentally gets fireballed.
Well, there's that too.
Could happen. So, what do you guys think? How would you handle this situation in your game? Do you agree with Ted? Is Ted being a bitch?
Am I being greedy?
No, just let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can support us in a fiscal way over on Patreon.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.